Okay, folks, we're gonna get started. We don't say shut up around here, we just say we're gonna get started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Everyone here on the Zoom. It's the regular monthly meeting of the Town of Oregon Plan Commission. First item of business on the agenda is an open public hearing on a petition to rezone land and certified survey map on behalf of Jerry Jensen and the Jensen Family Farm. Mr. Jensen, would you start us off with an explanation of what it is you're asking the town to do?
Okay. First of all, on your agenda, I just wanted to point out that on 2 and 5, second sentence it says north and south of Park Road. So that's should only be north of Park Road.
Okay.
So that's a
All
small thing to take care of.
North and south, that's a lot of territory, so we'll
Yeah,
consider it clarified and changed.
right.
Okay.
Now it's
Yeah,
north.
At the suggestion of the county, we decided to just deal with the north side of Park Road this time and get that all done. Go through the plan commission, the town, and get that all done. And then on the south side of the Park Road. So just putting it all up then. Would it be easier if I came up there and?
I think it would be. Feel free. And you're a sixth grade English teacher or a chemistry teacher. And audience writing on board. Keep that in mind.
Well, I had a teacher in my family, but it didn't rub off on me. Okay, what we're doing is we're reconfiguring 2 lots. This lot 4 will move up here and become this lot. This lot it runs east and west was a postage stamp lot. And the county said, you know, that doesn't make any sense. And I agree. So we decided to reconfigure this lot so it runs north and south. And that's about all that I can explain. Other than if you have any questions.
Mr. Jensen, I'd like to ask you, when you say the county said that, who at the county or what body told you that?
Okay, Roger Lane, Director of Planning and Zoning.
And I understand from other presentations you've made to us that he or someone in his office referred to an understanding or a vision of what that area would look like in the future? Or did I misunderstand your comments?
Well, yeah, but that's really way down the road, kind of up in the air. Right now, I just want to deal with those 2 lots. And then we'll take up other things as time goes on.
With the east-west running corridor there is labeled proposed cul-de-sac.
Correct.
What do you mean by that?
That means that I'm going to build a road. This is Windridge. Comes up and it cul-de-sacs here at the property line. So I will build an extension to Windridge up here and cul-de-sac up here. So that these 2 lots will have access one of the rules is that the lot has to have 66 feet of access on a town road. So the extending this road to a cul-de-sac will give us that. Will take care of that requirement.
And it's called a cul-de-sac, which may mean different things to different people, but to me, a cul-de-sac is a dead end. Is that what is that your president?
It will, I think it would be more accurate to say it's a stub road. It'll be a turnaround for people, for the snowplow, for the garbage truck, the school bus.
I have other questions, but is there anybody on the commission that would like to say something at this point? I'm going to ask, this being a public hearing, I'm going to invite the public to ask questions that we can present to Mr. Jensen. If you want to learn something or hear something about his proposal. I don't know why you might be here, what your interest is, but because it is a public hearing, we want you to get your questions answered. This is a good time to find out. Would anybody in the commission have anything to ask? Aaron?
Yeah. While you have stated your request for approval is for the north side of the road, I'd like to get a clarification of what's to the south of Town Park Road, just so we have it clear.
Sure.
Look,
Well, there's a lot there. There we go.
You have lot number 3.
Yeah.
Is that going to continue?
That's gonna stay as it is for the time being.
Okay. And then lot number 1 is around the farms, about the farmstead.
Right, that's 7 acres, has the house and buildings, and I have my nephew is very interested in purchasing that.
Okay, so that part stays as is.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay, just getting clarified.
probably for a very long time. And,
Do you have splits on that? Or no?
pardon
Lot
me,
3.
Do you have more
Lot one?
splits on that, or is that it?
no, that's it,
For the bottom south part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no additional splits on.
And no change?
no, nothing changes south of Park Road for the time being.
So when you say the time being, I mean, you understand you'd have to come before us again and.
Absolutely,
No,
you bet.
okay.
Yep, because I tell you the truth, when we put this lot and this lot in. We did it very quickly because of a mandate by the state. And we didn't really think it through. So now we come back 13 years later, and I'm looking at things and going, that doesn't make any sense. Why did we do that? But so that's why I want to make some changes. There's no additional lots proposed. These lots were created in 2010. And I'm just reconfiguring the 2 lots north of Town Park Road.
So in a nutshell, Jerry, you've got 3 lots or 3 splits you're using on your land,
Correct,
and that uses up all of your splits, correct?
correct,
So then everything of your land will be deed restricted after tonight.
correct. Well, it is now. It is now. Yeah, the 57 acres north of the Park Road, or 54 acres, so I sold Bill 3 acres. Stays in exclusive ag. And everything in this area, this is FP 35, this is farm preservation.
So for anything to happen down the road, then the deed restriction is gonna have to be lifted and whatever.
And that would have to follow the town plan. And but for approval and go through all the steps that have to be done.
Road and the cul-de-sac that you gotta put in, what guidelines will you be following to do that meets town standards?
The town ordinance.
How big a radius cul-de-sac are you thinking?
I would say whatever the town ordinance is. Haven't quite thought all that through yet. But, I'm kind of thinking about plan commission, town board, getting and certified survey map getting done. And then I'll be working with my road builder. He has already shot some elevations. So we know how much dirt overburden needs to be taken off. And where to put that, and, there are more questions that will come up and more answers I'll need to give, but right now.
I drove back up in there and I'm just trying to picture with the slope and everything, how the water and
Right.
everything's gonna work with
Right,
what you're talking.
right. Right, there's also some engineering needs to be done. What are we gonna do when a 2-inch rainstorm, 2-inch of rain over 1 hour, we gotta make accommodations for all that, so we don't get erosion. And I was on the Land Conservation Committee, so I'm very familiar with how you put in waterways and take care of those big rainstorms.
But that part of the engineering of this project, you haven't kind of got into that.
No, I'm just trying to get approval. I don't get approval, I don't want to go any farther with engineering and so
But on the other hand, we want to make sure that if we're going to approve something that will lead to a final solution, that
absolutely,
is not causing any problems.
absolutely.
So as you understand, Mr. Jensen, just by reconfiguring those lots so that they go more along the axis of the proposed cul-de-sac, I'm calling it that because that's what it says on the map. That that's all the change that you're asking for this time.
That's correct.
Just turn the lot 90 degrees.
Yep,
Counterclockwise.
exactly. Yep, once again, this goes away and comes up here. This goes away and goes down here.
Chuck, yes.
Is proposed lot 2 already approved?
No, wait, lot 2.
It's the one
Oh,
that's
this-
switching from east-west to north-south. I'm getting the
Oh.
impression, it's not approved already, is it?
It's a postage stamp lot. It's on the map.
It is on the map.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a CSM for it?
No,
I just didn't see it there, that's why. Yeah.
right, yeah. So that needs to be. It needs to have a CSM on it,
Hey, when did you do the postage stamp lot? 2010 also?
correct? Yep. Yep. Well, the farmstead. And lot 3, lot 4. All in 2000 and this postage stamp up here in 2010.
There's only 1.1 acres. Or no, 2 acres.
It'll be 2 acres. Yeah.
Gina, did you have a question?
So when it was proposed previously, was the access off of the existing cul-de-sac or road end or whatever road that we're calling that? Like what was the previous access, I guess?
There wasn't one.
There wasn't.
It was a
previous.
farm field.
So it was approved without access to the Windridge at the time,
Yeah.
or?
Yeah. But it wasn't buildable. It was it was a certified survey map of 2 acres. But in order to be buildable, it would have to have the 66 feet on a town road.
Have you worked out yet how the road that you're proposing will intersect with what's existing on the end of Windridge there? Cause it looks like there's already an
Straight
existing.
up and down.
So will the road be narrowed then, the existing
No.
cul-de-sac that's there?
No, it'll have to be. Town standards is 66 feet wide. So it'll be the same as as Windridge is. We'll just keep going up, keep going to the east.
So I'm asking, I think because on the map, at least on Google Maps, it looks like the road kind of widens currently at the end of Windridge. And the driveways intersect off of that, what is more like a cul-de-sac.
It is
So
cul-de-sac.
will
It's a
that,
small cul-de-sac.
right,
but-
will that stay the same then? And those driveways will stay the same and the road will narrow again and then widen again?
A lot of times, this will depend kind of on what the town wishes. A lot of times they take out the old cul-de-sac and then put it in another place where it needs to be at that time.
And I'm newer, can I still say that? So I'm still
That's
getting away with these
fine, yeah.
questions? So, so do you pay for that construction?
Oh, yes.
The change, any change to the existing roadway and the building of the new roadway, financial responsibility is yours, not the town's.
No,
The only financial onus on the town would be the maintenance of the new road, or does that maintenance fall on the town at all?
yes, it will be,
Once it's built?
once it's done, it'll be dedicated to the town. And then the town will do the maintenance on it. You know, I have to build the road, I have to blacktop it. And, you know, make sure it meets town code, town ordinance. And then it can be dedicated to the town.
I think you also have to meet Dane County land code too, right?
Yes,
Not just the town, but Dane County.
Anybody else on the commission have anything? Sharon? Sharon's.
sorry,
When I look at this map, I'm seeing lot 1 on certified survey map 13122, lot 2, lot 3, and lot 4.
Yeah.
Right? Lot 2 is that big parcel behind your homestead,
okay.
CSM, on the CSM. Right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, that's 4. And you said that where you're moving lot 4, I understand where that's going. And you're really creating another lot. That's that lot, that's north and south, that you say had a postage stamp free zone, but never had a CSM.
Correct.
So what? You better listen to some old white dudes play guitar?
Another lot, because you're now creating a CSM.
Okay, Sharon, how do I explain this?
I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
Back in 2010, it was allowable to for me to do the certified survey off the homestead. And then create 3 more lots. And I wasn't sure where that 3rd lot would go, so we agreed that it would become a postage stamp lot and could be easily moved somewhere on.
Bigger map, okay, I follow that.
Okay, somewhere on that parcel.
But what happens to lot 2?
Lot 2 stays in agriculture. They had to name it something. So. We had, the homestead is lot 1. 30 acres then as lot 2. 28 acres is lot 2. And then 2 acres, I'm thinking is lot 3.
Sure, if I may, and looking at the staff report from Dane County, I think they're calling it a one spot zone area.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, or that postage stamp lot.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that term, but
But is that not creating another lot?
no, the lot exists.
I'm not certain, but if they call
It's a
it
spot.
a spot zone, whatever that is, I'm not familiar.
I understand what you're saying, Doc. So, because that can't sell that as a parcel until you create the lot, correct?
And do a certified survey map on it.
Correct, so you're creating another parcel.
No, not really. I'm not creating another parcel. The parcel exists. Minus the certified survey.
So prior to this, you could have taken that spot zoning and moved it anywhere?
Yes. That's correct. I know it's, that one's confusing, and had I do it all over again back in 2010, I would have done a certified survey map on it, and we could have reconfigured it some other way in the future, but this way we can do it now. We can reconfigure it.
Jessica.
Yep, hi. Good.
First of all, I want to, full disclosure, I'm kind of a neighbor,
Yes, you are.
and I want to make sure that you're comfortable with my being part of this discussion. I reached out to Tim, because I know, I wasn't really sure what to find conflict of interest. Just wanted everybody to know that it revolves around any financial interest that a person might have, and I think it's just. That's the thing. Microphone. I can't see this property from our house, and I don't anticipate any effect on my property financially or otherwise, so I feel like I'm clear. And you know, I don't have any issues per se with what you're asking, or requesting today. I kind of wish there were somebody from the county here that could sort of respond to questions I have about their observations and staff recommendations. Because there's a lot of stuff that I would ask. For example, they reference in as far as explaining the origins of the idea that Windridge was going to be extended out to Glenwood, do not bring it up. And I'm not sure why they mention it in this report, but they do. But they cite the Windridge subdivision plat of 1979 as having said that that assumed that it would be extended out to Glenwood. And so I'm wondering, is there any presumption on the side of the county or anywhere that, and that whatever, wherever, or however Windridge gets extended, that it's somehow part of what is that, its relationship to that original subdivision plat? And is that a consideration in terms of, I mean, I don't know, I don't understand why they would mention that, because the zoning is what it is.
I can tell you, because there is an email from somebody, a resident who objected to extending, which that's why they put that in there, I think, to rebut No, I can't speak for the county,
I
but I
think
think
that
they,
was my email. actually. And that's why I'm sort of.
it was an
stuck in
email
my
from,
mind.
from a resident that probably from my view caused them to put that language in.
Okay, yeah, I just thought that was curious, but I do wonder. It, to me, it muddies the waters, but it's not really up to you to respond to that, and it's not really relevant if it's what you're asking. However, I would like to just put that original is in their report, and therefore it seems like fair game, but they're not here to have that conversation. Which I think is sort of noteworthy, because I feel like there's a missing element in this discussion, which is counties.
The county has separate meetings for this.
Right.
Exact. That's when you would discuss with the county. They don't discuss it at this table.
No, no.
It's
yeah,
always
okay.
at the county level. So it would be public hearing at the county level, staff. Normally you wouldn't see a staff report before you guys met here from the county. That happens after we meet here. The reason that you saw it first is because the public hearing was canceled here. Or rescheduled here, I would say, and so they were allowed to meet then before us, but usually they don't
Usually
have their first meet before us, no.
Okay,
We
okay,
we kind of do it in sync with each other. We would probably have that meeting, our meeting first, and then they would have theirs, and then it's town board, and then nothing gets finalized at the county until it's finalized here. So you get to see a staff report, but in all actuality, you normally would not see a staff report from Dane County before we had a discussion at this table.
Is there a reason why the county didn't delay talking about this if we hadn't talked about it?
No, they did, they postponed it, so they had their first staff report, a part of it, but they postponed the public portion of it. Just like we did, like their postponement is end of March,
Yes.
right, their public hearing is the end of March, yeah.
Okay, thanks for explaining all that. Anybody else on the commission have anything else to ask Mr. Jensen? As part of the public hearing? Anybody in the audience that have a comment or wish to make a statement as part of the public hearing? Please state your name and your address when you speak, sir.
I'm Bill Rockwell, 925 Glenway Road. So I'm just down the hill from this development and been Jerry's neighbor for.
Something like that, yeah.
So first of all, I want to say that my wife and I, Betty, are in favor of this. We feel like this is the best way to, if we're going to go forward with development at all, this is the best way to do it. I think regardless of what happened in 2010 and where the lots were before and all this, I think the decision to go this way and not put any kind of a road down to Glenway, which we're not in favor of, was a really good idea. I think you have a road existing already in Windridge. We would probably like to wind back time and say, we didn't want the Town Park Road to go through there in the first place, but certainly we don't want houses built on Town Park Road. So this makes more sense to append the existing development to that, I guess we call it Gary's western fence line. And the houses are already there. It builds on the existing neighborhood. It makes sense that you have roads coming from that side already. So the development on the other side of that hill, starting on the western fence line, and even turning the lot that way makes a lot of sense, I think, to keep the development going this. If there is another road, Jerry speculated that maybe it would actually just go down and connect to the park on the western fence line. That would make more sense to me in the future. Just take a road down that way so that those residents have access to the park, and there's another entrance and exit, you know, to that whole development. But I think keeping the development together on that western fence line and the way he's configuring the lots, I think is the best way to do this. And as his neighbors, you couldn't have a better neighbor. And I think that if we are going to have houses, we want to keep farming. We want to keep, you know, we're going to keep growing at Glenway Gardens, but we would rather have it this way, I think, to build on the existing development that's already there.
Very good, thank you, sir. Anyone else in the audience? Sir, would you state your name and your address, please?
Jordan Marche, 5415 Lost Woods Court. Yes, my only question here is, why do you want to put these lots in the northwest corner? As opposed to maybe putting them somewhere else. It begs the fact that you are going to have to extend Windridge. And you're on record in the previous meeting that you want to see Windridge extended, if not now, then down the road. And is this kind of your incremental way of making that ultimately happen by forcing the hand of the town to do that? Why do you want these lots there?
Well, sir, to begin with, I hope I'm not forcing the town to do anything. I want them there because it makes sense.
From
It
what
does.
you're saying?
It's just the right thing to do at this point in time. I know it may not satisfy your concerns, but it's the right place to put them. One thing is, it's the poorest farmland on the farm. It's a gravel knoll up there and sandy. And so the other places where I had lots were it's much better farmland. And well, have I satisfied you with my explanation?
Maybe to a certain extent, but
Does that conclude your question, sir?
yeah, that was my major.
Thank you. Your contribution. Anyone else in the audience have anything to bring up as part of this public hearing?
I wouldn't mind from Zoom.
Hold on, for Zoom for just a moment. We have someone in the audience who's raised his hand. Sir, would you identify yourself?
Yeah, Jim Herman. And I'm at 870 Jean Circle. I just wanted to ask, is Bar back? You said that there was a potential conflict of interest, some sort of thing like that. I just wondering where is your property in relation to Mr. Jensen? That's all.
That's a good question. I'm north of the Jensen farm. I'm separated by that property line by my neighbors to the southwest. So I'm about 5 acres north of his northernmost property. And this, these lots would be, being on the west side, there's a tree line. We actually can't see it from our property. But we're not impacted by this.
Get your question answered, sir?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, thank you. And from the Zoom, who is speaking up, please? Steph?
Paul Christensen,
What's your address, Mr. Christensen?
1000 Wesley Road, right at the intersection of Windridge and Wesley Road in the subdivision. So basically right kitty corner to the cul-de-sac he's proposing to extend. I just want to go on the record saying I am all in favor of it. I think it's a great idea for the same reasons the first gentleman that got up in the audience and spoke. I live in the subdivision, got a young family of 4 here. Would love to see this subdivision. It's a great one already, and I would love to see it expand versus starting a brand new one out in the middle of a farm field. I would like to see the existing one expand, and also the same thing, the other guy down the road in the future, the more natural place for that road would be really already tying Town Park into the subdivision, just straight into it. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom or in the audience or on the commission who has any questions or comments to make as part of the public hearing? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Jensen. You may take your seat.
Thank you.
That concludes the public hearing on this subject. So we're ending the public hearing and now we start our meeting. We thought we were in a meeting, but we're not. It's a separate proceeding, and I'll call the Plan Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please, Stephanie.
Okay, Tim Yanachek,
Here.
Sharon Christensen. Here. Arlene Ty.
Here.
Dave Hayman.
Here.
Chuck Sewell.
Here.
Gina Larson. Here. Jessica Barman.
Here.
First matter on the agenda, as part of our regular plan commission meeting is the very matter that was addressed in the public hearing, Mr. Jensen's request for a rezone and certified survey map. Open the floor to discussion or comment by the commission, or a motion.
I just have a
Gee.
question, I guess, prior to a motion. Is there anything related to the road that we would need to vote on adding roads to the town that require maintenance and upkeep and are a financial liability?
I can say this, and if anyone disagrees with me, please tell me. This proposal does not create a town road or even plat out the cul-de-sac. It's clearly labeled as proposed in the future. It's not part of it. It's just, as I understand it, the petition is to change the configuration of the lots he has. It doesn't create any cul-de-sac or road. But I take your point.
Well,
And I would say for sure, this does not constitute an approval or disapproval of any future town road.
so, but without the cul-de-sac, the lots are not buildable because they don't have 66 feet of access.
That's right.
So the proposal actually would approve a non-buildable lot as it stands.
Approve a lot in a new location with a certified survey map showing where it is. David, did you have something to add to that explanation?
Well, yeah, that's technically correct. If this gets approved, there's two lots there that don't have 66 feet of road frontage. So how does that get controlled? Let's hypothetically say that passes tonight. Then who's in charge of overseeing this extension of Windridge Road? The bonding for that, liable, stuff like that. How does that get handled?
The engineering, all that other stuff. Those things.
Proves that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Seems, anybody know the answer to that question? Chuck? No. I just know that we're not approving it, but that's all I can say for certain, Arlen.
Well, I think we're recommending, we're recommending or not recommending to the board to approve this. I think to Jimmy's comment, we're approving, we are also tacitly recommending or not recommending an extension of Windridge Road.
Grover was in here 3-4 months ago. Remember, we added the driveways to his, he said he needs to have 2 driveways. So it was contingent upon adding 2 driveways.
But
I'm not certain who follows up to make sure the 2 driveways were added to the CSM. I'm not certain how that works. You know, I thought of that, you know, Mr. Grover, you have to put 2 driveways in your 4-lot configuration now. Who follows up with that? I'm assuming Dane County does.
No, we would be approving, a driveway permit when there's a building permit.
I think that's the answer to the question.
This is more than a driveway.
This is more than a driveway. This is extension of a right of way.
But in order for, we may need the town attorney's opinion on this, but in order for a road, including the cul-de-sac, to be dedicated to the township, we've got to accept it. We can't just give it to us. No, there can be conditions imposed on the.
It would follow the ordinance that's put in place by Dane County and Dane County Planning is the one who we, township and Dane County are the ones who we need 66 feet of frontage to get to a driveway there, period. We're requiring that here. So therefore, if you want these to be buildable lots, you are absolutely saying this is a recommended, but it is board approved. It will have to meet all of the requirements for the ordinance, just like any other right of way. So you are recommending approval for that to happen.
For what to happen?
If you're gonna recommend that there be buildable lots, there's no other way to get there.
That seems like that's Mr. Jensen's problem. He's got to convince the town
Right,
board. to-
right, no, you're not saying that you're approving them right now, because
Right.
there's no building plan, so you can't approve anything, because it's not before us. But essentially, you are saying that by idea here, you're just approving the CSM for there to be 2 more lots added onto that. But there are steps further after building, you can't approve it right now. You can't, the cul-de-sac is not a thing yet. It may never be a thing, because it still has to go through those steps. So I wouldn't think too hard on saying that if you approve this tonight, you're saying that there is going to be a cul-de-sac, because that's not true, because you could just build a circle with styrofoam and you'd say you're approving it, that's not true. You're approving the CSM, the draft CSM, and actually you're not even approving it, you're recommending approval to the board.
Once the CSM is in place, once the parcel, the newly identified parcel is in place, no one can build on it until he gets the necessary permits, which will include getting the access. I think that's how the procedure would have to go. Sharon?
Would we not be recommending approval of these lots subject to the town approving the extension of Windridge Road?
Yeah.
If the town doesn't approve the extension of Windridge Road, then we're not approving the CSMs, because we're making our approval subject to the town approving the extension of the road.
I think that's within our power to make a recommendation like that. And then it's up to the town board to act on it.
And
So it sounds like a
also,
great motion, Gina.
We wouldn't have to include that. contingency, would we?
That's
Would
right.
we have to include the contingency? Or not necessarily? We could just approve him to move the lots, they're just not buildable lots.
Could do that, or we could add some muscle to our recommendation by saying, we approve it, but we've got concerns about this, and this is what we want before we would give our wholehearted approval to this.
but to express a concern is one thing, but to make our approval subject to the town proposing the extension of Windridge gives us a little bit more authority or a little more meat in the recommendation for approval.
Anybody else have any input on this? Jessica?
Well, I think it focuses our decision on the CSMs only and sort of defers the question of the roads to the town, which maybe that's. Does that sound correct? As an interpretation? What that would do? If we just wanted to focus on it, sort of put the road question aside and wait.
Or I can foresee if we only approve the reconfiguration of the lots. If the town board would say, well, what about the cul-de-sac? What do you guys think about that? And they send it back to us for our recommendation on that.
I think we're only doing half a job. If we approve it without the recommendation.
That's right.
I guess my question, is, let's say for sake of argument, I wanted to take a town road off, and don't call it road on my farm fields. What would be the procedure I would have to go through to propose a town road? Or if I want to put a cul-de-sac in just for the heck of it.
You would have to get town board approval and county approval by zoning, perhaps planning.
A form,
I don't think so. Not at town board level, I would say. I would say that it would probably start at county. But we have an ordinance, we have road ordinances, we have driveway ordinances, so there is something to follow, that's for sure.
my understanding is this would not be a driveway, it would just be a piece of town property.
Yep. But that the town would be liable after it is built. Mhm. Therefore, it would need town board approval.
Arlen?
I think Sharon crafted a great motion because at creating two CSMs without a way of getting to them as part of that creation makes it pretty meaningless. So having that condition of including the right of way for the future cul-de-sac as part of the CSM would make the most sense. That's what, if we're recommending moving this forward.
Is that consistent with what you were saying, Sharon, that we've only doing half the job if we just deal with the lots and not,
That's my opinion.
and it sounds like Arlen's agreeing with that.
I also have another concern.
So,
If we look at the staff recommendations from the county, they are recommending that we have the existing deed restriction terminated and have a new one recorded to address lot 3, which is at 35 acres or roughly thereabouts. It's lot 2, I believe, on the map, the existing lot 2. The county is recommending that. Now, they must have their reasons for recommending that.
Yeah, because he's taking that house, putting it up top.
Right.
So that CSM no longer can be viable as explained.
It could be.
So that's why they're making him do that.
I'm assuming that.
That's what he's been doing, yeah. And then just so you know, they also say above, they're removing the spot zone and making it a CSM. So your point is well taken.
Well, following up on Arlen's recognition of what you said, Sharon, would you care to formally state as a motion? What you have in mind?
I will attempt to. I make a motion, we approve the creation of or the rezoning petition number whatever it is. I don't have the right paper in front of me.
Clerk can supply that, all right.
11885. Okay. We remove, let me start over. We recommend approval of petition 11885, subject to the town approving the extension of Wind Ridge Road to meet their specifications.
Say to a cul-de-sac.
We can if we think we need that, but that should come from the town recommendations, should it not? I don't know, do we want a cul-de-sac there, or don't we?
Well, it would clarify that it's a stub end, as Mr. Jensen described it, it's the end of the road.
You're gonna need a turnaround. So you're gonna have a cul-de-sac because fire trucks or whatever else can't turn around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, if we say to meet the town's requirements, that should cover it.
You know, I just have. The county also says in their report, if the town desires the road, referring to the town park, not Windridge. That if the town desires the roadway to be dedicated to the public, this would be could be accomplished as part of the CSM. I found this report odd because it goes off in all these tangents and it's kind of unfocused, but since we're talking about the roads and what our approval of a CSM would entail, I feel like I have to point this out.
I think we have more information than the county does now that we've heard Mr. Jensen in person and got some commitments from him as to what he's trying and what he's not trying to do. I think we know more now than on staff did even before they're here.
So this won't happen. If we approve the CSM, that won't have any impact by virtue of this language on the status of the town road.
Mr. Jensen's still gonna need county approval. And if they can stick in any contingencies or changes they want, but our action is not adopting what they're saying. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, so I guess I'll just bring up a little bit of what I think is kind of the white elephant in all this. I don't know if I put cherry on the spot, but down the road, you see yourself looking at some possible more homes on your farmstead, one way or another?
Well, yeah, it's way down the road.
Via some mechanism, would it be a?
That's correct.
Subdivision or something else.
That's correct.
So I'm just looking ahead here to see, you know, what roads are coming out, what can be tied together. For now, it's just get these 3 lots set. The whole farm's deed restricted, can't do anything else.
Right.
So Sharon has not quite finished her. But I think people are saying with the reference to the cul-de-sac being, or not an extension, an indefinite extension, the cul-de-sac is proposed or along, consistent with the proposal, something like that.
Well, I think it needs to meet town requirements.
You could just say extension of Windridge
To meet
to
town
meet
right.
conditions.
Can we have that read back?
if that's what you want. Recommend approval of petition 1188, subject to board approval of extension of Windridge Road. Extension of Windridge.
Is that finite or does that, do we need to be qualified? How far? it's
An
extended?
indefinite extension? Any limit on the extension?
Well, I mean, that's up to the town board, so it would be subject to board approval of extension of Windridge Road. Whether they want a cul-de-sac there, they need a cul-de-sac there, they're replacing the cul-de-sac
Could
from
we
back
add-
further.
Could we add, just to clarify, extension of the road to service the driveway needs of these 2 lots? Driveway requirement for these 2 lots. That would kind of
Access
put a
requirement or
a
something
limit
like
to-
that.
concept, and we're just talking, this road is enough to
Okay.
satisfy the needs of this.
Yeah, that might be it.
Okay, and that ties it into these 2 lots without leaving open-ended, going all the way to Chicago.
So,
Okay, what do we have, Steph?
well, I don't know, because that's, if you wanted to do that, somebody's got to move to do that.
Well, we don't get a second yet, but we want to know what Sharon actually said.
Sharon, what did you actually say?
Forget that. Got it. I make a motion to approve the rezone petition number 11885 to approve the creation of the lots in this petition with the board's approval. We recommend the board approve. We recommend the board approve the rezone and certified maps subject to the town's approval of the extension of Windridge Road to serve those 2 lots. And removing the existing deed restriction on the current lot 2 and creating a new deed restriction on the vacant land that's currently zoned FP 35.
That's the end of your motion?
The end of my motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I moved and seconded. I'm not gonna try to repeat it, but I think we all have it in mind because Sharon said it a couple times. Is there any further discussion? Anybody on the commission have anything to say by way of discussion? Before we vote on this? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carried, and I would say unanimous. I would look aye. All right, well done. Thanks for talking us through so thoroughly. I think we all understand where we've been and where we're going. Okay. That concludes item 5 of the agenda. We move on to item 6. Things kind of backwards in some ways, but we're going to ask for approval of the minutes and proposed by Stephanie of our previous meetings. Have a motion for approval?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the January 24th, 2023.
Second?
Second. Thanks,
Okay.
Victor.
Moving seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Item number 7. This is a period of public comment, which is intended to be ambiguous or wide open to a certain extent. I see Mr. Jensen's name is listed under public comment. Well, that means he has something specific to say.
Let's see.
I just had a couple of thoughts, being that I've been around town government for a long time, and when I became town chairman, we started our vision process. And then that moved into the land use plan. It was, in those days, it was called a SMART plan. And I had a good buddy that says, "What's wrong with a dumb plan?" But it was something we were mandated by the legislature to do, is a new land use plan that was consistent all over the state of Wisconsin. And so we did. We went through the process. Sharon was there, Dave was there. And there were some long discussions, and it lasted for about 4 years by the time we completed the land use plan after the vision, which was 2 years. So I just, having that background, I was thinking about 2 things. First thing is the rural lot size. In those days, we determined that size of a rural lot should be 2 acres because of the septic rules at that time. You needed to have a well on a rural lot and your septic system. And the septic systems in those days were one tank and that went out to a drain field. But if that drain field failed for some reason, you needed to have enough space for a second drain field. And to get all this plus a house, rural lot sizes were determined at that time to be 2 acres. And that was pretty consistent over the whole county, with one exception. The town of Dunn said that the maximum lot size would be 2 acres. We had our plan, a lot of towns in the county said the minimum lot size is 2 acres. And town of Dunn said, no, that's too big. We don't want 5 acre lots or 10 acre lots and so anyway, I know you want to finish up your land use plan, your current revision, but I would suggest one thing. That you take a look at rural lot sizes again in view of the new septic codes. Now they require 2 tanks and they're only requiring one drain field. So you don't need to accommodate that second drain field in rural lots. So I would, don't take my word for it. If you had time before you want to finish the land use plan, call in an engineer or somebody familiar with septic rules and run it by them. And say, do we really need 2 acres? Could it be 1.5 acres, which would give us more lots? And leads me to another point. Is I've heard that in order to raise the levy, you need to increase new construction. And Wayne at the last meeting said that the for every $1 million in new construction, you get about $3,000 added to the levy. So that if by reducing the lot sizes, if you don't need, in my opinion, but don't take my opinion, bring in somebody who knows what they're talking about. And see if you could reduce that lot size. In addition to that, in view of the needing more new construction to increase the levy, you know, to pay for the new fire truck in town and town road improvements and all these things keep going up that are pressing on the taxpayers. You might want to think about also creating a subdivision ordinance. And that would allow you to have that new construction to help out on the levy. As I said, I know you're trying to finish up your land use plan, but I think these two suggestions, and they're only suggestions, make sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Still in the public comment period, I recognize Mr. Coffey. Do you mind voicing your concern, and I invited you here because we can exchange information on your particular issue, if you like.
Well, we've been trying to build a house for quite a few years up here on Lincoln Road, and we've been going through all the hoops and for 5 years. Recently, in the last couple, we've been going to go to the county. I've had contact with the county, phone contact one, personal contact one. Town said, we'll do this, do that. Now, the last time they said, we'll go to the village. It approved the village. We did that. They approved it. They said, now go back to the town, and we want to know just where we sit.
Thank you for putting it that way, because it can be a very tortured path, but there is a pathway. And it sounds to me like maybe you've been sent off the pathway a couple of times when there's a correct way. We want to make sure you're on it because you've been at this a long time, and we want to make sure you get an answer, yes or no, as to what it is you want to do. Mr. Toffey, and correct me if I'm wrong, has a lot that would not permit a second building site on it. And you would like to have a family member get the building site on the lot that you have, which would require you still meet the 2 acre minimum, but not the 35 acre minimum that in farm land preservation requires.
Transition zone, right?
Yeah,
Transition zone.
and Mr. Toffey is in the area close to the village, which would require village approval, county approval. And everybody's got their finger in this pot. Steph, what would you, we know that, I believe that Mr. Toffey has to start with the plan commission because we make the initial recommendation to the town board for that. Can we get him on the agenda where we can start formalizing this for him so he gets going on the right path?
You could do a formal, like because he's been on our agenda before. And nothing really happened there. But you could formalize it, say in March, and you could say, and it would be a formal request for basically an amendment of the plan or to be added to the plan that we have yet to.
Jennifer said at one point to rezone it to something like a traditional subdivision lot or something like that. She mentioned at one point. She was referencing something else, but that's what she suggested you could do in the plan. If you wanted to do something like that.
Adding it as, yes, like a.
In other words, change the zoning of the 18 acres to something different where it would allow the second lot to go in there just for that specific, you'd have to make an exception to
Have to be
the,
an amendment.
to the plan. Just to do it. And that would open Pandora's box, obviously, for everybody to come to do that. That's something we probably need to discuss.
Okay, and Arlen?
I believe Mr. Tofty had come before the plan commission some time ago with a similar proposal and was turned down.
In October. Was just,
No, long before that.
oh, maybe, 2016, possibly, 2016. I don't know, I wasn't
Okay,
around then.
it had been brought forward and said there was no splits. So there was no development potential there unless within the family where that farm was once to be getting purchase one of the splits from a family member to do that was an option. There was a split with the whole farm that went with one of the other ones and that it could transfer over to that property. And then that was where it stopped.
Yeah, I know we were at that planning committee, and that's how we took the path that they said, well, you need to go to the county. And see, then we got the county involved after that. We were turned down to the planning committee then. And then we went to the county. And they kept going back, well, now you gotta go back down to the town. They set the rules there. We just enforce them pretty much is what they're saying. So it's just been a vicious circle.
Well, the decision motion was made to reject the proposal that you had, and that passed. So that until you had split that could come over to your property, nothing could be done.
Does anybody know if that was a formal action that the
Yes, it
town
was.
board took?
But Dave, you were there. Sharon, you were there. This is
I don't know.
this is maybe 6 years ago,
I don't recall it. We took formal action. We may have, but I don't recall it.
or rejected the application.
Well, I know that it would have been talked as a rejection because it didn't meet the criteria.
Right.
I understand that our consultant at the county, Brian Standing, has come up with some possible ways to accommodate it, but we'd have to do something if we were in favor, such as providing for this in our revised land use plan. We could make that if Mr. Tofty's interested in continuing to pursue this, and it sounds like he is.
Well, if he is, we have in our new land use plan, have the transfer development rights, which he could be purchasing one of those and accomplish what he's after.
I don't know that he qualifies for that because he's in transition. He's in that transition, like the ETJ area, yeah,
Next to the village.
yes, so.
That would require some village cooperative.
So that option would be foreclosed to him because of the.
Yes.
Chuck, you
Yeah.
have something?
No, I was just gonna say, I sympathize with,
Same.
you know, when the village moves this way, I don't know what they're gonna do with your property, if anything. If you're gonna sell it to someone or what you're gonna do. with it.
Well, we've had developers after it.
Yeah.
We could annex it, but we don't want to do that. We'd like to stay in the
I
town.
wanna stay there, yeah. It's just a difficult situation because you're not zoned and there's not much we can do other than to approve a request to rezone it. And that's something we would need to discuss and talk about that. But, you know, is it, especially if the village approved it, I don't know. It just,
They really didn't approve it.
I thought the village said it was okay, no?
Oh, yeah, they approved it. We were down, they approved it.
If you read carefully that letter from them, it does not say approval.
From the village,
It-
the village said yes.
We were at the meeting, they approved it.
It doesn't.
What about this with? If we ask Mr. Tofty to start. Obviously, he wants to try to find a way to get, still has his objective in mind. He still wants to pursue this. Scheduled for a formal request, a petition, appearing some paperwork that will rely on, and we can either vote up or down on whether we still think there's a possibility or there's not. And then Mr. Tofty can appeal our decision if it's negative to the town board, and the town board sitting can decide whether they'll accept our recommendation or not. Does that follow the procedure?
It does, except for, like Arlen was saying, he's, I think, because I don't know what the formal decision was, because I wasn't around, but it seems as if he's already went that route, so really, he's not asking for a regular application or petition, because he knows that, I mean, he's been turned down based on criteria that we currently have. I think what he would be formally asking for would be to either be added to this plan that you guys are trying to pass now, or to be considered in the amendment. In a amendment, I shouldn't say the, but in an amendment.
Who would he take that request to?
He could do that here, it would just be, that's what he would be, he would come in saying that, he would come in requesting, as opposed to come in requesting just for us to allow this, because we wouldn't, I mean, we don't, he knows that. Yeah, he knows where he stands right now. And then
Talk
you
about
would,
amendments, we talk about putting a mark on a map.
basically,
Okay.
yeah. You
So
would
he would
have
be
to add
asking,
him
this is non-technical,
at
but
that
he'd
property,
be asking to have his property marked a certain way on our map. And that would create an
Yep.
amendment that would allow him to do what he wants to do.
yes.
If there was a vote in his favor.
Yes. If there was a recommendation by the planning commission to the board to amend
And how would
or
you?
to add, because at this point you could still add, but like that just depends on where you're at.
You could put something on a map that colors him a certain color that allows him to do what he wants.
Yes.
Or the town board could say, no, we're not gonna make an exception in this case, you gotta be treated like everybody else. We're not gonna put that color on your.
They're gonna base it on your I mean, they're not gonna, you would recommend to them what you guys are looking to do. But I would say that his next, to be a formal, there's not like an application, because he's already done an application for that, but just to come in and to say, I'm requesting to propose, I would say, to propose an addition to the amendment or an addition to the plan or an amendment.
When should he do that? Before us, or does
I
he?
would say to do it here first, because he's already done it to the board. Which then has kind of sent it back here. And then you would make your formal or an actual vote. You would have it in writing, what you guys voted on, whether to recommend approval or not. And then it might be bounced back another couple times, but it would be then go to the board. The board would say, we accept your recommendation, or we don't accept your recommendation, and the board might come back and say, we want them added, or we don't,
At least you'd have a definite final answer from the right.
in writing.
If you want to go that route, Mr. Coffey, and try this again, would you? What if we put you on the agenda for our plan commission meeting in March, which is Tuesday, March 21st, where you come and make an oral statement and make it formal, and we talk about it and probably reach a vote as to whether we recommend yes or recommend no.
Absolutely.
And then that way the board would have the final decision, but at least they'd have the benefit of our recommendation. And you won't feel like you're off on the siding instead of on a track going the right way. Does that sound all right? Yep. Is that okay with the wife?
Whatever he says, he's the boss.
It's the other way around.
Currently zoned.
Excuse me?
What's that?
What's it currently zoned?
No, I'm not sure of all the.
It's AT 35, right? It's AT 35?
No.
54-31.
Acres. 60 RR 16.
RR 16?
It's only
Where are
20
you
acres.
actually zoned?
The use is Roman. Transitional, it's in transitional.
Okay, transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in orange on our new map.
Yeah, we got the 20 acres there.
So they would have to take a piece of, we would have to say, you can rezone a piece of it to traditional subdivision, where it's 1 to 2 acres.
If there were a traditional subdivision.
I know, but that's the only way you can.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure this out in my mind.
Open the doors.
We'll just-
Well, that's exactly, you know, I mean, you can always subject it to the transition zone too. we're only gonna do this in the transition zone because otherwise, if you're willing to give up your property for big bucks from a developer who want to do this, go ahead. I don't know. I mean, I'm just talking out loud here. You know, and it's just something to talk about and consider later on, especially in a transition zone where the village is gonna gobble all this up anyway. And as Brian put in his letter, sooner or later, you know, the property owner has a decision, do they want a developer or wait till the village? They won't get developed and you get a lot more money from the developer.
Sorry, maybe question. So what happens when the village annexes? Is the zoning still the same or is the village with a whole different ball?
So with the village.
So does it get rezoned? It's not going to be like. some rural zoning?
That's one of the have county zoning, have city zoning, village zoning.
Okay, and they have a whole, just a whole. I don't know.
I'm assuming in that
Right here. Right here.
it would probably be residential. I'm assuming.
No, that's Hillcrest.
Or because the golf course is right across the road, it might be a commercial of some sort.
So when you go into a village, you really are more experiencing the residential. It's not like the rural zoning is.
Zoning in the village is probably more residential than we are. Yes.
What, once it's.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and they said they're already.
That kind of wrap up our discussion.
I think we have to be careful. Until, first of all, we have to complete our plan. And let's keep that separate for the moment. If they come in and we do something prior to completing the plan, they don't meet any of the criteria in the current plan. And if we make an exception to the current plan, we are going to open a whole big can of worms. Because it should allow a lot of people to try to do what they are trying to do. There's probably a lot of people out there with 10 acres, 7 acres, 8 acres, 15 acres that may be in the same situation that they're in. And they're going to see that if they can create a land division, that those people are also going to want to create a land division, regardless of what their zoning is, because we're saying that their zoning is one thing, it doesn't allow for that. So how are we going to justify? And I'm trying to be fair to everybody in our township. And yet I know that the Denton family and the Tofty family very well, and it's hard to sit here and say, how can we allow them to do this, but we can't allow somebody else to do it when they meet the same criteria?
How many people are in a jurisdiction like we are?
Oh, there's
Coded extra.
there are quite a few. I don't want to give a number because I don't have a fixed number in my head, but there are a lot of people that sit on 5 acres, 10 acres, 15 acre parcels that are zoned rural residential or RM, which is a mixed use.
But are they on the border of the village where they could annex?
Some may be and some wouldn't be.
I'm thinking that everybody's not really in the same boat though. If we could annex, they can't. I mean,
True.
we can block, we're kind of protecting the township by kind of blocking the urban sprawl.
Because if you take over ours, then extends them to be able to take over the next, mile out or 2 miles out or whatever from wherever the border is, so you keep moving it.
In essence, that is a true statement, but in theory, there's nothing that can stop the village. Whether, unfortunately, I mean, we can't stop it. So, and I'm trying.
But we can. We don't
We
have to give
could
our property up to the village.
Well, that's not totally true either, because let's say you built your house there and the village comes along and says, we're gonna annex everything here. You don't have too much to say about it, because they can take it by eminent domain.
I've heard that that was not true in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get, the village will not take something. You have to apply for annexation of your property into the village. So, no, the city, the village
Okay, correct.
will not take it. I want to be part of the village. I want to sell my land to somebody to be developing something, and the only way I can do it is apply for annexation.
So everything that's being annexed around the village, those people have all gone to the village to.
Correct.
Or the village has gone to
Yes.
them and they.
Yes.
Right, or they've come to
Okay.
us.
So
Okay.
it is not, the village does not take.
Okay,
Commonly happens at a large developer, they'll say, take my village because I can sell
Yes,
this. house."
right,
And
understand.
and the village does plan and say, hey, if you do want to come in, this is where the sewer lines are. We would like to have parks in this area. We would like to have residential in this area. But you gotta apply.
Jessica,
This is probably a naive newbie question, but, would an exception, I mean, personally, I would kind of like to see some latitude given for the fact that we have demographically, we have an aging population, and I like the idea that they want to set this up where the daughter is in farmhouse and parents have this adjacent property where, have a younger adult nearby. And I think that that is a situation that we should encourage in general, or at least facilitate. And I would love to see that. And I'm probably oversimplifying because but isn't zoning originally about this kind of like assigning purposes and so forth? It should be purposeful. And maybe we should consider exceptions if that's workable. I don't know if it is. But I just really liked this idea. And I hear about this, in the media a lot. But accommodations like this ought to be encouraged. And especially in a town where we have space. And we have an aging population. And we have limited resources for taking care of older people, and people prefer to stay home. I think that could be, it would be nice if we could develop that kind of into some sort of formal exception.
There was a time not too long ago where the county discouraged accessory building
Oh, sure, I know.
and all of that. And now they're kind of swinging back the other way.
Well, because there is a huge generation of.
Absolutely. And there's no place for the aging population. There's not a lot of places for the aging population to go. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I
What-
think it would be a nice, full-
I don't know, I found an alternative. I have a 3-generation household now. My wife passed. My daughter and her 2 sons have moved in, so we have 3 generations in our
Yeah,
house.
I have a 94-year-old in my house.
And I have, and our immediate neighbor has their parents living within the house, a different level. It's not a duplex, still a house. So there are options.
Well, but it's,
There are
I think
options. of-
it's nice to have, I think that is, my 94-year-old father's. And it's very spry and. But for some people, that's not. And for some people, that puts an added burden on the person who is maybe taking care of home chores and things like that. I mean, that is definitely an option, but I don't think it should be the only
Well,
option.
right now, what Sharon has said is that what we do for an exception here was. It's important that we're consistent and have that available to everybody in the town.
Right, I realize that it could be problematic, but I'm suggesting that we might want to formalize some of that.
So, fine. Here's what I'm gonna suggest, Mr. Chair. We're in the public comment period of the public comment period of the meeting, an agenda item. There's no motion. We're not gonna make a decision on this issue. I've invited Mr. Coffey and Mrs. D to come back. And if they choose to come back and make that proposal, we can continue this discussion and make a decision. It might be yes, it might be no. It might be another time, but I think we should give them an answer after we've thought about everybody's, I've heard a lot of conflicting thoughts here that are gonna make me think for the next month. And we know if he comes in that he's gonna want a decision, and we give him a decision that he can take with him to the next level if necessary.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, all right with you folks? Good, thank you for your patience. We'll see if one way or another, we're gonna move your case along.
Thank you very much.
Good. Next item on the agenda, public comment. Being anyone else for public comment? Mr. Root, please state your name and your address as if we didn't know.
Steve Route 993 Tipperary Road, Oregon, Wisconsin.
Yes, sir.
I would like the planning commission to do the right thing. Take the RH properties that property owners owned prior to 1994 December, and allow them to keep what they had the right to do to develop at that time, keep it in the new plan. It was supposed to be in the old plan. They made an attempt to put it, to make an amendment with the county, to put it, to have the county accept it. The county would accept it today if the county they did not necessarily accept it, they tabled it. And it was never brought back up for exceptions. So the county never disapproved it. So I'm asking you to make the right recommendation to the town board to allow the RH properties that existed prior to 1999, December of 1994, I'm sorry, to allow this to occur. Thank you.
Any other public comment? That leads to our next agenda item, which happens to be the land use plan. Discussion and possible recommendation. Steve, were you present for the joint meeting we had with the town board?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what came out of that?
Yeah.
As I understand it, and you others who were present with me may have a different recollection, but as I understand what we were asked to do by the town board was the town board would make a decision on these RH properties, and we would get the information they wanted from Brian Standing in the county and present it to them for their consideration and discussion. Because we have already, I'm not sure of the month, but I know it's in our minutes and it was voted on formally. Our commission had already taken a position that RH properties 494 are going to be treated. I'm not going back to 1994. That's what our recommendation.
We moved from 1994 forward.
That's a
Approved the draft map in June.
June of 2022. And for the newbies, that was before you got here, but there was action taken on the vote. Now the plan, the town commission realizes that there is that idea is described by Mr. Root, the concept, and also the concept that we adopted, which is that we're not going to go back to before 1994. And they wanted some two alternative ideas, two alternative maps, and the town board was going to decide which one they were going to do. Steph, would you say that accurately?
Yes, and they're both of them. That's the one that the plan commission, that's the draft, that's the last draft that you guys recommended.
That's, and we're talking about a draft, it's a map, right?
Yep. it's
We're working
this
as a
plan.
map,
Yep,
better
it's,
words.
you're looking at it as a map, and that's scenario 1. And then scenario 2 would be the map. farther. Dividing before, oh. Scenario 2, which is in your packet as well, would be the RH property. The showing them on there, which is what the town board requested. Why do we-
I had trouble with that.
What is that?
I had trouble.
This is one.
Yeah,
There's two.
there is 2. Where is 2?
The red lots are
R2.
the RH ones that are
Ah, thank you.
in question.
There's two, it says-
Okay, there's 2.
Yeah,
There's
the
two.
red- So the blue lots, the blue numbers are ones that are that have the potential of being divisible now. The red dots, red numbers are the ones that are potential for doing the RH. If we adopted. What is the word of that?
It wouldn't happen. It's probably safest way. And the town's changing the map.
They call them one-time RH lots, legacy lots, so those are two terms.
We can use it interchangeably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what the town board specifically asked us to do was to give them the information, these two maps, and they would make a decision because we had already made our recommendation to not recognize the legacy lots. Back in 2020.
Yep, you would present both options.
So Mr. Roots and other people who are similarly situated can come before the town board when that's scheduled for specific discussion and approval, and they've basically taken the decision out of our hands now and said they're gonna decide if they want option 1 and option 2 to choose. But does anybody disagree with the way I'm remembering that?
Okay, so the potential lots in blue. Number of potential new lots based on 2-acre minimum lot size.
Which map are you looking at there, Dave?
Scenario 2.
Okay.
They also exist on scenario 1.
Blue lots, yes.
So I guess I just want to confirm with everybody that I'm understanding this right. The blue lots could be built on today. They are zoning traditional subdivisions.
Yeah.
Those people, if they choose, could divide and build a house.
Yes.
Some people may know that, some people may not know that about the plan.
Right.
Then the red lots,
And some of them are the same as the blue lot, you know what I mean? Some of them kind of overlap, yes.
are the historic lots that were discussed.
Yes.
Took away. And those are not available today, right?
It makes a difference.
Okay.
We have an ordinance in place that allows person to do it today.
Okay.
And my impression is your recommendations, initial recommendations without these two options, you're taking that right away from those people that have the right today. Prior to the lots prior to 1990.
Prior to this discussion, the people with those lots, like yourself, to try and get that done, there was no, I don't want to use the word legal precedence, but there was stumbling blocks to get that done the way it stands right now. That a true statement?
Stumbling block would be the planning commission.
Yeah.
In my opinion. To get that done.
The
They
status,
don't have the ultimate authority. And from a legal basis, I believe it should be done if it had to be done through a lawsuit.
I think the town board at the last meeting, the joint meeting, was not ready to either accept or reject our recommendation. until they got this additional information, so the alternative. Now that we've got it, I think the motion that someone may make now is that we let the board know we're waiting to hear further instructions from them now that this information has been provided.
So your understanding is the board has this information and they're gonna discuss it and get back to us with what they would like us to use, scenario one or scenario two.
They want to make the decision.
So
You have to present it first. The plan commission would first have to present both options, because that's what they asked for.
Okay.
So
The one that we
however you
recommended?
present it is up to, like, that's on you guys, but you could present it. And you at this table could say, we're open. You could present it as, we've already made our decision and this was the one that we recommend. This is the one, now you've asked for both of them. That is completely up to you guys, but they still need to, it needs to be presented.
okay.
Going on that procedure,
Yeah.
we had recommended, I believe at the November meeting, that we had the comprehensive plan and this was put forward. The board asking for what if,
An alternative, right?
an alternative. Now, but we've already. I just want to make sure that we were on our procedures as to what we've recommended so far. It's my impression that we had recommended the draft of the comprehensive plan that we did,
One dated August,
or November, August,
October.
October 18th.
and that does not resurrect or revitalize the
guys-
legacy.
No, it does not. Okay, so, but we have that plan that we have to move forward. And we were starting on setting the schedule for the town approve the public hearings and the approval process. Where does that process, can we continue forward with that? Or does that just stop until the RH legacy issue is approved or disapproved by the board?
I think what the clerk is suggesting is we should take some formal action tonight to let the town board know.
Yeah.
That we have acquired the alternative they requested.
Yep,
Here it is.
and here it is. And then at that time, so you could do it you could do it at the same time. You could say our, like you had said, our plan was to move forward with what we had. You approved a land use map already without the properties on it. What you would then do is present it to the town board as, here's the plan that we recommend you approve with the map that we approved here. And then here's your scenario B that you requested, because they requested it, so. Doesn't mean that you have to recommend it, doesn't mean that you don't have to recommend it, it's just, they requested to see it, so they need to see it. But you could do that at the same time.
Do you have to go through the public hearings before we get the plan?
Not
No.
before it goes.
No.
Before it goes to that hearing.
Okay.
You
so-
would have, we could do it as a joint thing or whatever, but
okay, so
you
they-
would have them potentially as well approve it before it goes to public
Okay,
hearing.
so
It
you don't
doesn't,
have
it's
to
not a
take all those
finalized,
steps.
yeah, it's not
Okay,
finalized,
So you
yeah,
can do it informally, say, here's the plan we want to do, here's the option you pick,
yes.
and then we go with the public
Yep,
hearings.
yep.
That makes sense.
I think in the,
I put that in this letter, right?
yes, and kind of step by step how that goes. The one that I had copied and attached to the email to you guys.
From Brian.
I mean, I just attached the email from Brian Standing that kind of said, one, you guys here approve a draft or recommend approval of a draft to town board, then they would do as they do. And then then it would be 30 days from this, 30, it kind of plans out what we would have to do after that.
October 18th draft, did we not recommend approval to the board?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I don't think you formally took it to the board to recommend approval.
At the last meeting, we said we need to get going. Let's recommend this
Yep.
without making changes,
Yes.
and then we can always amend the
Right.
plan thereafter.
Yes,
I think that's what we said. I could be wrong, but that was my recollection.
yes.
But I thought that was a recommendation.
It was never voted on. Really?
Okay,
So,
so in one respect, if we could be, if it's true that we have not, as a commission, approved the draft land use plan draft,
you could do that tonight. That's-
we could do that. And
Yep.
we could also say, here's the alternative as requested. And that would conclude our formal action on it.
Yeah.
It's two actions, and I think that would be worth, I think we should be pushing this forward. And here's an alternative, and if that needs to be an amendment to it, then that's,
I guess that would be my question. If we take our draft the way it currently is and say, here's our draft. My understanding, and everybody correct me if I'm wrong, our draft is gonna automatically include all the blue because that's currently
Yeah,
what's available.
That's the one that you guys,
So our draft
in
is gonna not really change it for those blue people, because it's there now and it stays there going ahead. Now, so if we send our draft up and send these two scenarios, all we're really doing is saying there's one scenario, they should really just look at the red, say, do they want to include that in our comprehensive plan? Because the blue is already there regardless. So I mean, it's kind of misleading with the scenario, but I guess my point is we explain to them so they understand that the red is another scenario that could be added to our land use plan. If they say, yes, we want to include that, then we would have to change our draft to include that if we want it in now. Or
if they.
we have
wanted
to
it
understand
now.
that we're gonna do that at a later time as an amendment.
Yeah.
That kind of those
Yes.
two different roads that might happen.
Yes,
sure.
potential.
I hate to do this, but can I have a little, big pardon? I hate to do this, but I have a little history lesson. What happened in 1994 that the RH, these lots were taken away? Is that my understanding? These lots were taken away from these homeowners in 1994? Is that my understanding?
It depends on who you ask.
Okay. Were they given something in exchange for these lots being taken away?
You know, that would be something to find out.
I'm just curious.
And I can't answer your question.
Okay.
Because I do not know.
I'm just curious because it seems weird that people would accept lots being taken away when they're not giving anything for.
That's what was happening is that this was the adoption of the exclusive ag zoning. And what was given to the landowners was the taxation of the farmland at a much lower.
So they got tax
there was
breaks.
a big financial thing. And then they also got the splits,
If I went for 35,
the one for 35,
so they got tax breaks and one for 35 in exchange.
which on our land in Iowa, they got the tax break, but they did not get the 1 in 35. And it's very rigorously enforced that there's no higgledy-piggledy of lots out there. So it's an approach of this state. So as far as the RFH, it'd be interesting in history as to what was taken and what was traded in exchange. Dave, would you like to, your understanding of what you would like to do in the form of a motion, and we could consider it?
Well, before I make a motion, I just kind of want to make sure we're all on the same page. Or have a little quick group discussion. Let's hypothetically, okay, so are we all on the same page that the blue is gonna happen regardless? And if we make a recommendation to the board to have them approve our draft as it sits, And they should then consider scenario 2, which includes the RH legacy lots. And they can decide if they would like that, the potential for those people to build on those situations. And if, I guess my question, if they say yes, I guess I'm not sure what that, how much more work that adds to our current draft to have that included. I mean, we have to work with Brian Stanley or what kind of language we need, because I know there's possibly an ordinance out there that has to get killed or whatever.
Yeah,
So
but
I get, my question would be, do we wanna, if they say yes to the legacy, do we wanna take the time now to get that in, or do we say, yes, we're gonna do that, but we do it as an amendment so we can get our plan approved? I guess I just wanna bring that up when everybody thinks, oh, that's a thought I had.
And my thought is, might be better for us, not necessarily for the public, but for our members, to have a little time to learn more about this and where it's come from, and where it's gonna go, what are the implications. Maybe ask Brian Standing informally how much work would be involved, and then we'll be better informed to make that, the board will be better informed to make that decision. Except,
you'd have to
I'm
bring
not
it up.
prepared to do it tonight, because we don't know if we're gonna do it between the night. Well, unless people want to vote to change our recommendation from that we made last year.
That's exactly what would happen. Right now, they wanna see both, you gotta give them both. They want to veto it, then they can veto it. They can say, nope, put it in. And they can say, put it in before you guys finish your plan, and they could say, go ahead, finish your plan and make sure this is a part of your first amendment or whatever, as well as this, this, and this. They could give you more, I don't know.
So basically, just make a motion that says, here's our draft plan. We approve it. Included is scenario 2, which shows the RH legacy lots. Please discuss this amongst yourselves and let us know if you would like that included in the plan. If you'd like it included later as an amendment, or if you don't want it included at all.
Who should we take? This is a totally different concern, the election, right? You're gonna have a new town chair. You're gonna have at least 2 new supervisors. One. It's just. Timing wise, it's just, I'm just saying, it could be, this one decides this and then the next one decides another. I don't know, I just say, let's go, let's get it done and see what happens.
At least we're doing our part.
But if Dave, I think I'm hearing you say, this is what we recommend, this is what we voted on, this is what we recommended. Is the draft of October 18th, 22. And seen in scenario map number 1. Also presented is scenario map number 2 as requested by the board.
So motion on.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
guess,
think I was trying to restate, I think I was trying to restate Dave's.
I guess before I do this, Tim, if you could just go around and ask everybody what they think of that idea, I just wanna.
Okay, Sharon, we'll start with you. Does that sound feasible or something?
Well, I think they need to definitely see map number 1 and number 2 and make the decision on what they want. And if the draft is what we've decided on, then that needs to be presented. Just the way it is.
Do you have concerns about the draft?
I can't really say yes or no, because I've only got bits and pieces, because I've got a few here and a few here and a few here, and I don't know. I really will stop over to the town hall and say, show me what the real draft is.
It's the latest draft is the one that was October 18th of 22.
And was it a complete draft or was it just the land use portion?
There's a complete draft of everything. We may have took out the land use portion and we talked about only the land use portion at one time.
Okay.
But yes, the whole
Brian
draft.
has the updated demographics.
Yes. Okay.
but please do stop by and make sure you're
I will,
satisfied.
I definitely will.
Gina, again,
Don't hold up the thing on my account, just go for it.
Gina, you got? Gina,
I think that sounds like what we were being asked.
Chuck, any comment?
I agree to get the October 18th, 2022 draft up to the board. And I think it's your job to make the difficult decisions. You're ultimately the ones responsible who are elected. And I think it's appropriate for them to make that decision whether RH or not.
Can I ask another?
Yes.
Are we providing any analysis with our map? Or are we just giving them a map?
In terms of what it means, and they will get the, not just the map, but you'll get Brian Standing's commentary. That's. Which
I
is,
just know that I think that the planning commission has been in weeds on this draft much more than anyone else has the understanding of it, so. Not that we would make a recommendation, to have some summary things.
yeah, and I'll be gratified if the town board put in as much work as we did on doing this. You can pass that along, Arlington, your colleagues on the board, Jeff, as well. Jess,
I just have one question, which is probably a dumb question, but the pre-94, the legacy parcels, if we said, okay, pre-94, what does that mean for them? They can do whatever they want? Is there no bars to them? Is it anything goes? What does it mean?
A good question to ask Brian Standing.
I think it means they could get 3 lots there. 2 lots.
3
there.
lots, 2 lots, 1 lot.
Well, yeah, if you are you looking
Numbers
at the
here
number
are
of
indicating
lots
how
they
many
could have,
lots they.
the number inside the red is the number of potential lots they could have.
As they meet a
Okay,
minimum
okay.
2-acre
I
requirement,
told you
we
it's
can
a
subdivide up to.
Yeah,
Was it a dumb question?
Thank you.
It's not. They say in school, there's no dumb questions.
Yeah, so, I'm not entirely clear on why, is it really black and white in everybody's mind that we definitely don't want the legacy parcels for some reason?
well, it was discussed and voted on, and it was a contentious discussion. There was opposition. But that was the vote. Now, you're new on the board, you didn't participate in that vote.
And I don't think you should have to convince me, maybe spend all that time tonight. I'll go with the vote.
You know, and I don't want to talk you into, if you feel strongly that you want to cast your own vote on the matter. We missed the public hearing, that sort of stuff. That's
Yeah.
kind of why I'm relying on the vote.
Yeah.
There were also history lessons dating back to restrictions that were made in 81 that were laying restrictions on there. So the question was, are we going to go back pre-81 and lift those restrictions too?
Okay.
And it was,
So it's clearly not a black and white thing, it was
it's not
complicated
black and
and
white.
voted on.
There's also discussion as to if we have a plan, now, do we modify it to, under certain conditions, to be allowing additional development under the set a new standard that's fair to all?
As Mr. alluded to, there's a further complication that when the county was going to act on, they didn't make a formal decision on it. They tabled the discussion.
Which would have addressed the point you just made.
That was 12 in 2012. Yep, the current plan we have is 07. In 2012, the town put forward an ordinance to correct what they felt was a mistake in the plan when it was submitted and approved. And this was to correct that mistake. And hence give back the RH development rights.
Which at that time, the planning commission was all for it.
I'm sorry?
At that time, the planning
The planning commission and the town
Was
board
their recommendation.
passed the ordinance accordingly, so our plan commission, passed the board, Steve said. And then it got stalled at the county level Let's not get into the personalities that were going on at that time.
So, I mean, obviously, I think when the joint meeting we had made it pretty clear that we can always make amendments and changes if we want to,
Yes,
so
we can.
I think whatever, I'm fine with.
Yes.
And it sounded like what you and Dave were suggesting, or what you were echoing that David suggested makes sense.
Okay, Joyce, we got her on the table, expressing their thoughts on.
Yeah, I'll make something. If somebody has a problem with it, feel free to speak up. And I'll make a motion that we forward to the town board of Oregon our revised land use plan dated October 18th, 2022. And further send up, give them a map of scenario number 2, which shows the quote unquote legacy lots. And ask them to study that and decide if they would like our land use plan to include the new potential lots that would be found in these legacy lots. I would add as a subnote that scenario 1 or the blue labeled properties are currently available to be built on the current plan and will continue to be available on a new plan.
Get that stuff pretty much.
I mean, that's not really how action items work, but I can get what I need to out of it.
What verbs do you need?
That's like a paragraph and really it's just supposed to be like what we're actually voting on. So you would be voting on recommending approval of the October 18th, 2022 comprehensive draft
Yep,
of
I'm
the
okay with that.
comprehensive plan, right? And land use map. 1 and 2. Well, but you're not recommending approval of 1 and 2. Are you?
No, I'm just.
You recommending approval of 1?
That's the one that was.
Or
on the-
I should say, you're recommending approval, you don't even have to use scenario 1 because it's the same exact map
It's in
that
that
you
draft.
approved in June, okay. That's what you did. Okay, so June, so land use map. Right, approved, in June, whatever. So it was the last one that we've ever had. And then that would be that would be 1 vote. That's what you're doing. And then you can say, after that,
I'll have another recommendation to.
yes,
Look at scenario 2.
exactly.
Yeah, that makes it.
Make them separate so that it says, this is like your guidance, or not guidance, but
Can we have a second to Dave's first motion?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Chuck. Any further discussion on the first part of Dave's motion?
Just have a point of clarification, Stephanie. You said Brian is going to be at the town to discuss that.
Brian Standing,
Yes.
I did not say that.
Okay.
And also,
I just thought his comments regarding the 2 scenarios was helpful. I think so.
it's not that he can't be, we just haven't,
And maybe Arlen can do that at the meeting. I just thought, you know, his analysis was helpful to my understanding.
yes.
Yeah, these are legacy lots, but you know, my neighbor has 3 of them and he's never gonna build on the 3 lots anyway.
Yes.
You know, Brian pointed that out. It was his analysis based on what he did. That he thought those lots were perfect. So I just think that to add context to that, it's helpful.
And having him available at that meeting is just, whatever meeting you choose to do this at. Is just a matter of asking. He'll be wherever we want him to be, as long as he can.
It's been very fun.
Yes, exactly.
And there was a second to David's motion?
Yes, me.
Chuck said.
And this is for
Draft.
recommending the draft of October 18th, 2022.
Yeah.
That's motion 1, number 1.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Okay. Could I make a motion for the, that we submit a land use map noted as scenario number 2 as requested?
For a second,
I second.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Well,
say-
do we want to include that we can submit it, but we need to specifically say we'd like some direction from the board that they
You
want
could-
this or don't want this?
You could say, I mean. What I have for Arlen is moves to submit scenario two to town board
as
as
requested.
requested. Mhm.
And then that
Um,
is
yep.
assuming possible action.
You could,
And what-
you could do that
would be-
too.
That's my intent.
I got that. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, so that motion carries.
Who was the second on that?
Joe.
No one else
These
is
are
seconding
defaults.
tonight.
These are
I
defaults.
wanna get this going.
Second on everything.
Remember, you gotta carry the guns to the duel, you're the second.
I just want my name in the minutes, that's all I want.
Marketing, you know,
Okay, so we're taking,
might wanna consider doing it at a separate meeting. Than the March town board meeting, like a special meeting. For presentation purposes and question purposes, but that's not up to me. It's up to you guys.
What
And
is-
the town board.
What
yeah,
is
what's the
it?
beginning?
Presenting it at a special meeting or doing a separate than your usual town board meeting in March, just for the sake of discussion and allowing for time for presentation and discussion.
Jennifer makes the agenda every month. Arlen's on their planning commission.
Yeah.
Stuff. Is this something that you feel would fit in that slot? If not,
No, I would say Arlen could give an update on what we did here, but you would put this on as an actual actionable item on
Yes.
the town board agenda. So
If-
you can ask to do that, Arlen could ask to do that for the March meeting, for the town board March meeting, or if you wanted to separate it, to do it as separate meeting for the town board, so that it's exclusively only talking about comprehensive plan stuff. We could. That's up to you guys.
It's a good point, is, as Chuck was saying, having Brian Standing
Mhm.
go through an analysis of that, answer
Yeah.
questions of the board would be important. We don't know if he's gonna be coming.
Right.
Last time he appeared via Zoom and he participated fully.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that's a possibility. If
Do
the,
we wanna
if, there's, remember, there's gonna be, the board can say, thank you. We're not gonna do anything about it. Gee, that's nice. We want to do something about it, but we need more information. Or it can be any of the above.
Right.
That they want more action. Or not.
So do you think that we should have a separate meeting? Or do you think you should have a separate meeting, meaning the board should have a separate meeting? To discuss solely comprehensive plan stuff, or after you update them in March? Or do you think that you should try and do that in March? Ask for that to be on the board meeting in March.
Well, we had,
This.
the March one was originally thought that we were going to be moving forward with this and setting the schedule for the public hearings. That was kind of the schedule that was going on, was it not?
They
Do we
had
wanna
the
stick with
future
that?
public hearings in mind when they said.
And so we need, somewhere we need the board approval to be conducting the public hearings. Do we
It's in
not?
their hands.
Yeah, it's-
So. Do we want the decision discussion do you want the decision and discussion in regard to this to be at the March 14th board meeting?
Like you say, it could be a decision made there. They
Mhm.
say, we really need, this is,
Sure,
got enough emotion that we need to have a special thing after.
okay, so. We can try to have it as an actionable item on the March 14th meeting. And if it doesn't happen and you have to do another one after that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got it now.
That's your business.
Thanks.
And I can ask Brian to be involved in that.
But and we don't know what the temperature of all 5 members are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sir. Pardon?
I won't be here. I'll be in the Caribbean for March 14th, so I want to make sure.
Item number 9 on the agenda is called communications. March Plan Commission meeting. And conditional use permit presentation by Dane County Planning. Can you enlighten us on that stuff?
Yeah, basically in March, at your regularly scheduled meeting, Roger Lane will be here from Dane County to do a presentation regarding conditional use permits. I guess kind of collaboratively, we thought that it's a good discussion to have, presentation for him to give to you guys as a whole. And then I believe, is it done? That might come, there might be a couple, maybe some other municipalities that are involved as well.
Yeah, the plan commission chairman from the town of Dunn wanted to attend, so he could educate himself.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, that's what your March meeting will be. Most of would be that. Do you guys have any questions about that? I think it'd be awesome for everybody to learn it.
We just put him on the agenda and he speaks at his turn and.
Yeah. He's gonna be the presentation presenter, and you can ask questions. They're pretty great. But that's all I have. That I was just to update you guys that that would be happening in March, and I guess if you had anybody that you would like to invite that you thought would benefit from it, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and I would just like to add that conditional use permits, there's some changes in the law and the procedures, and they're really gonna be a valuable tool for us on the commission to make sure people that we let do business here, for example, or use their property for certain reasons, actually do it and commit ahead of time to doing it. It's an important tool for us to keep those residents in the corral. Stephanie, would you address the review of capital area regional planning commission, otherwise known as CARPC?
I will do the best that I can. So I did not do the webinar that you and Arlen did. I wasn't able to do that, but I can tell you what I know. I don't know how familiar everybody is with the agency CARPC, but it is the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. So they basically collaborate with Dane County town municipalities, Dane County municipalities in regard to overall like regional planning of lots of things, open space stuff, parks, a lot of water issues. They are the urban service, they're the people who approve your urban service development, whether sewer and stuff can push those boundaries. Right now, the township has worked with them or is working with them on a needs analysis. So I think in March, they're going to be coming to the park committee meeting, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Okay. To help with like a needs analysis for that. And then also the boundary agreement between a potential boundary agreement between the village and the township. They provide all sorts of resources, data analysis, a lot of planning resources. Is there anything?
And I asked this to be put on the agenda just because they have a tremendous amount of statistical information. They can tell you how much traffic goes through an intersection, how many bikes are going through it compared with pickup trucks. All that information is available for us to tap into if we ever need to have a question like that answered. How much more?
And how do they find out about that?
Track your cell phone.
Oh, they track your cell phones, yeah.
So when your cell phone in and you try to text something and it says, "Are you driving?"
Or it says you're 2 minutes away from your destination and you're like, how do you know what my destination was?
That bit of information is going to big data.
So we can get that now. Whether you want to trust big data or not, it's there. Okay, thank you for that, Steph.
Yeah, and this is their website, and there's just, I mean, everything you need to know about CARPC is on this website. Their services is pretty. It'll tell you what different services they have for planning. That guy right there, that's my cousin. Senior community planner for CARPC. So he'll be coming and giving a presentation or doing whatever you guys need him to do. I don't know what it is, on Monday, the 13th of March, if I'm correct. I will not be around for that. Your birthday? Oh, wow. Well, I'm sure you might not be involved in the park committee meeting that night. Or you might, I don't know.
Have a big water bottle like that sitting.
Yeah.
Number 10, board item, Arlen, do you have a report from our town board?
Okay, we have, from the town board, one of the action items that we are going to be dealing with is what's the future of, the Torque? Because the Torque will not close on July 1st. So it'll be how, dealing with what do we do from here as to what services are going to be there, how to pay for it, just what's the future. Other thing was this morning, I participated in the comprehensive planning at the village for parks. So they are actively in their process, and it was part of the focus group on parks.
Village parks, or area parks?
Their area parks, well, it's also so I'm not quite sure which hat I was ultimately wearing, but I think it was a combination of town and Rotary Club, which is working heavily on Lerner Park. So it's so I was the focus group on passive recreation needs.
Do anything with our town parks in particular?
With our town parks, it was how do we connect, I was advocating that as they're doing their plan, that they start looking at connecting to our parks. How do we get connectivity, pedestrian bikes, conservancy, wildlife connections and corridors with our parks, village parks, and adjacent town parks, and the connection to the bike trail, the extension of the Rotary Bike Trail, connecting to the Military Ridge. So connectivity, working with local municipalities. That was our push.
After the Torque thing, is the town board saying that plan commission needs to kind of figure out what to do with the Torque after July?
You know, that's gonna be an interesting question, because way back when Torque was the responsibility of the plan commission. Was the Torque was planned through here. The more that kind of faded away, and you have the Torque committee. The question is, was put out, is the Torque committee being revitalized, or is it going to come back in our lap? Do you have a thought on that?
No.
And I don't blame you.
Anything else from the town board?
Stephanie, am I missing something?
I don't think so. I did have a question about the village and the park thing. Was that a part of their revision of their comprehensive plan?
Yes,
It is, okay.
they have two comp plans, one's park
Yep.
and one's the overall, the park part of it
Yeah.
has a shorter, 5 to 10 year window. The village comp plan is a 15, 20 year horizon that they're looking at, but they're all the park plans within the whole plan. But and there was a lot of other village people that were really grabbing onto when I was saying we need to be connected. We also need to be having more cooperation between the village and the town.
Thanks.
Final item on the agenda tonight is future agenda items.
Yeah, there's
Sharon, you
another
got your
one.
hand up?
I know what she wants to do.
She wanted number 12.
The only, okay, I added future agenda items because of the discussion that was gonna happen, here, and I wanted to be clear on what's going to be on the future agenda. I will be on vacation, and I wanna make sure that I get a head start on, the next plan commission meeting, basically. So what we have so far is that we're going to do the Dane County Planning presentation. That will pick up obviously most of that. What other things that would you like on the March, I mean, that you could predict now? Obviously, we don't know what's gonna happen with board level.
Right, here's my thoughts on it. We're done with the plan temporarily because we've pushed it on. So that doesn't have to be on the agenda. We, dealt with, Jerry Jensen's plan, had a lot of time with that. We've given some guidance to Mr. Tofty. I can't think of any other pending
So,
land use issues that will be coming before us. If somebody could file something tomorrow and you'd have to put it on. your agenda.
right, exactly. So then it would be the Tofties if they choose to come back. I'm assuming that they will. So they would be on there as well.
I just want to get the formal process going
Yep.
with them to get them.
But I'll just add them to make sure that they're on there as an agenda item, so you guys can do a decision. What else? That's about it, I think.
Anybody has any other ideas, feel free to contact Stephanie directly or run it past me.
I usually just put it together and ask Tim, what else do you see, or what did I miss? And
I always say, don't tell Chuck that this is what I want.
yeah,
Is it too like aggressive to start thinking about making a list of things we want to consider for amendments and researching anything that needs work for?
I encourage forward. Doesn't have to be on the agenda necessarily, but I'm always willing to talk about it. If there's something that you want to bring up and get people's opinion, put it on the agenda because it's open meetings.
I don't have anything. I just thought maybe
You have a fertile
Yeah.
mind.
opportunity. Well, I mean, there's always something brewing back. but-
yeah, you just ask and we'll make
No,
sure
it's
it
ready for
happens.
prime time, but I mean, would there have to be a formal like topic you want to talk about, or is the idea of an open forum for people to bring their ideas for amendments, something that could be a topic?
I think it's a judgment call, how specific in depth you want the discussion to be. It's just something you want to bring up. It probably doesn't have to be an agenda.
That's a sort of thing that interests me as well. And I sort of wonder, like, what is the protocol if there's people on our commission who want to like talk about delving into something or researching something, whatever. Are we encouraged or discouraged to sort of splinter off and conspire among ourselves in the most benign possible way?
I think it's kind of a German style, whether I want to expand it, things or restrict you to what's written in black and white. I like the fact that you guys are all smart, concerned people, and if you have ideas, please bring them forward and let's see if we can make things better for the township. That we follow strict protocol.
So when you could bring, would you prefer that we express that interest to you and then maybe?
And I can help you decide if it should.
Be on an
it's
agenda
of
item or
interest.
not, yeah,
How's that sound?
that sounds
Not a
great.
Requirement, but you're welcome to, when I pass.
And if you don't, like, if you think that you're serious enough to the point where it should be an agenda item, then we'll put it on there, but otherwise you could always bring it up in like communications you know what I mean, portion, just as a talking point, like this is what I'm thinking and I'm researching this, can we put it on the next agenda?
Sure.
Or,
And if we put something on the agenda, does that imply that we're potentially acting on something or just
Absolutely not.
potentially discussing it?
well, we can just put it as discussion, we can put it as proposal, we can put it as whatever. It just does give the audience an idea of what will be talked about so that they can be informed. But not, unless we put it on there as an actionable item, like this says possible recommendation, there could be possible action. Then that's very clear that there could be action taken on it, but if we just put it as a discussion item, it's just up to you guys to discuss.
Thank you, one and all. Steve, thank you. Jerry, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Made it.
motion, sure.
I so moved.
Second. All in favor?
You were too quick for me.
Yeah. I don't get it, I always just put SC or DH on there.
Real good chef. Right. You only know water. Yeah.
Your wife, one of you guys was talking.
And,